do think, you mentioned at the very beginning at lunch.
Yes.
I think the best recommendation that I got from a mom was, we love your audiobooks. We listen to a chapter a day, but we do it during lunch. And here's how we do it. We go to the kitchen and it's like, okay, everybody has to make their own lunch. They're old enough to make their own lunch. So we're going to put on, chapter 13 and we'll listen to that. Well, so everybody's quiet. They're busily preparing their lunch. And they eat their lunch with, very little conversation or interruption because mom's not going to stop that CD. And then when the chapter's over, they stop it. And mom goes through the sequence of the chapter to make sure that everybody understands what's going on. Vocabulary words, what's happening in the story, all of that kind of stuff. And then she says, okay, well, let's get back to school. And so they didn't do the audiobooks in their school. They did it during lunch.
Right.
What she thought was amazing was, as soon as that book was over and we heard the last chapter, I would say, who wants it? And the kids would all argue over it because they wanted to listen to it again. Well, but they had dozens of titles, then it wasn't so much of an issue anymore because everybody always had something to listen to and they would learn to take turns and all of that. But I thought, wow, that's a really smart way to kind of put a framework around lunch that's, the kids enjoyed it, but it was still educational and it was everybody together. Mom got listened to, that kind of, anyway, I just thought that was a really, really smart way to do things. So the car
taking the vocabulary words out, and so you do word for word reading.
I do,
and so that makes it easier for if you had the text and you were working with it, then you could take the words out ahead of time and figure that out.
Yes, in fact, we've done a study guide for every single Henty book that I've recorded. And the study guides have an assignment for every chapter in the book. And every assignment contains new vocabulary words in that chapter in the order that you will hear them in the chapter.
Oh, okay. Well, it's much easier to understand the word when you've heard it in context.
Exactly. Yes. So I didn't really know whether to provide the definitions or not, or whether to put them in alphabetical order or not, or, so I just said, you know what, let's just list them in the order that they come with no definition. And we'll let the families decide what they want to do with that. You can actually alphabetize this list an assignment. You can look these words up and write down the definition an assignment. You can listen to the chapter and write down what you think the word means from context, and then look it up and see how close you came, and that'll develop, attentiveness skills. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. And yes, I chose to do unabridged recordings because I want the title to say For the Temple by George Alfred Henty. So I want it to be the entire book. And I chose not
to be one of my favorites. I love that book.
It's kind of a sad book because what I didn't realize was the Jews had factions that were fighting against each other behind the walls of Jerusalem, while Titus and the Sixth Legion had surrounded the city, and they're like, guys, hello. Why? No, you have a really big enemy right outside the gate, and you're fighting amongst yourselves. It was really kind of sad. But, you're supposed to learn these lessons from history. You don't fight amongst yourselves when you've got the Romans at the gates.
Well, and I think that brings up a good point. Is these stories, when you do finish a chapter, they have so much good discussion afterwards. And so being the parent not reading out loud, I think I have a little more breath to then start those discussions and continue them with my children, because I've had the ability to eat my lunch and do.
And you can actually be focusing on hearing the story as opposed to focusing on where's this sentence going, who's talking, how do I pronounce that word, all of that anybody who's reading out loud goes through, especially if they're reading it cold. Don't ever try to read a Henty cold. I mean, they're hard. I mean, to read out loud, you can read it to yourself, okay, but they're difficult. They're a challenge. He was a 19th century British author who was Cambridge educated. I mean, he's not right, and he's not writing Dick and Jane. You know, I give a talk at conventions sometimes about, you know, how to incorporate the Hentys into your homeschool. And for a while, I had found a passage in a book that was that long. It was an entire paragraph. And what I would do was I would say, tell me what you've learned, what you can figure out as I read this paragraph in this book. And I read this long sentence with 2 asides. Oh, wow. And that entire paragraph was one sentence. And that's what, you know, people finally figured out. That was one sentence. And I said, yes, but do you think you could have read it out loud and made sense of it? And they said, no. And I said, I get to practice. Yeah. I get to practice. So when I read it, I know where to do the asides, kind of put a parenthesis around this little phrase, and then come back to the main sentence. You know, like I know how to do that because I've been able to preview it. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because you can kind of, you know, change your inflection to kind of set it aside versus just reading dry through the whole thing. And yeah. So that's another benefit of audiobooks. The guy who's doing the reading, we all look up the correct pronunciation of words. We all work on our accents. We all will read that sentence. I mean, the most times I've read a sentence before I felt like I got it right was 7 times. Wow. Before I really felt like, okay, I got that one right. And because it was a difficult, complex sentence. And then, but you want to say it right, because my job as the reader is not to say the words out loud. My job as the reader is to convey information in a way that the listener can grasp. So that's my job, is to say it in such a way that I'm actually conveying information, not just reading words. Exactly. Yeah. And because there is so much that comes with the story that and the presentation. Yes.